Brad, why don't we just start off by, before we get into like the big marketing stuff, let's set the scene a little bit. Tell us a bit about your background and how you got into
Yeah.
this work.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So I'm on the media sales side of our industry, and I'm proud to say I've just recently actually celebrated my 25 years
Wow.
with Rogers Sports and Media, specifically on the media side, and in that time I've worked in all kinds of different markets, from Canmore to Lethbridge to Calgary to Vancouver. Now back in Calgary, and I started in radio, so radio is my sort of passion. But now, Rogers Sports Media is such a expansive company. We offer radio, TV, digital, out of home products, all digital facing as well. So not just the traditional side of things. And we offer solutions that target everything from the smallest campaigns that target down to the FSAs, all the way up to sort of the national reach, with big national campaigns and everything in between.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so my department and my sales team, we concentrate specifically on local clients and helping them grow their business through advertising.
Gotcha.
Um,
So what does your day-to-day look like, would you say?
so yeah, it'll be, well, meetings and meetings and meetings. But
Yeah.
no, but the things I enjoy the most about my day to day is when I get to sit down with clients and go, okay, hey, I think especially in the world that we live in now, that a lot of people are trying to do the marketing themselves, and they're advertising themselves, and
Hmm.
to have a specialist or to have an expert come in and say, hey, here's using my expertise from the last 25 years, knowing your business, here's what I think your brand is, here's what I think the most effective way to promote yourselves, and at the end of the day, grow your business, whether that's through specific customers buying a specific product, or whether that's overall branding, and just overall, what's the most effective way to, at the end of the day, make our clients more money than
Hmm.
if they hadn't met us and we hadn't built a marketing plan.
Absolutely. And you've mentioned you've been with Rogers in general for 25 years.
Yeah.
That's wild. Did they give you a watch or anything like that? Or
So I got $750. Oh, actually, well, seven
oh,
hundred fifty dollars worth of stocks is what I
no,
actually
really?
got.
That's
Yeah.
hilarious. Wow, damn.
So yeah,
Um,
but yeah, it's a great company, and it's funny. Like, yeah, I started when I was 21, and I wanted to be on
that's
air. I wanted to be
wild.
on the radio media side of things, and then my first 6 months that I was in, I finally got a chance to do a cut in, which, and it was just terrible. Like, it was all it sounded pre-recorded and read. And then I called my parents after, who listened to it. And my dad's like, "Yeah, it was something." And then
Oh
I went,
no.
"Yeah, I got to get into the sales side of things. I think I might be better at selling the stuff than actually being on air." So
Well, that's amazing. And what I was trying to get to, and that's so funny because I used to be in radio as well, and yeah, I really dislike being on air. I
yeah,
like the behind the scenes stuff, which is ironic as I'm currently hosting this podcast. But in that 25 years, you've certainly seen a shift, right, from, let's say, traditional to more on that digital side of things.
yeah,
Even before we hit record here, we were talking about, the shift with, how different sports industries are currently, selling their product and so on and so forth. So why don't we talk a bit about that shift in advertising,
yeah,
more so from that digital side of things. What
yeah,
what are some of the challenges you've seen with that shift to digital?
yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely, yeah, I've seen that transition. I think the biggest thing for me is I'm happy I work for a company that has both. It's not just a digital facing company. It's not just traditional, and I think
Right.
that's important as well. But yeah, there's a lot of benefits to digital. Trackability being one of the biggest ones. Traditional media doesn't always have that to the same degree that a digital platform would. Now, the marketing challenge that I've seen that's been created because of that is, clients, I find that clients are now becoming more and more focused just on the bottom of the funnel marketing.
Hmm.
They're just going after the clients that are in the market absolutely today and today only, and they're going to be buying a product today. And so some of these marketers are exclusively just focused on click-throughs and conversions.
Hmm.
And those are valuable metrics for sure. But I would challenge this and say that the most effective marketing campaigns and plans need to have a wider focus that also concentrates on the top of the funnel as well.
Yeah, totally. Like, I feel like in recent years, marketers have started to double down on that bottom of the funnel
Totally.
component. So talk about how that shift might be, either helping or hurting
Yeah.
folks in the long
Well,
run.
and I think it's important to concentrate on both, because if you get stuck in sort of the cycle, and I've seen it over and over again, where there's certain companies, they're stuck on a cycle of just always bottom of the funnel, and once you get on that treadmill, it's really tough to
Mm,
justify getting off of it. And yeah, some of the problems that I've seen, that when you just focus on the bottom of the funnel, is if you don't establish what your brand is, what makes you unique, better, different, potential customers are always going to focus on price, because if their first interaction with you is clustered together with all the other clients and all the other companies that are purely just concentrating on the bottom of the funnel, that's one of the only things that they can concentrate on is price. And so it's important to have the conversations about what makes you unique, better, different before potential customers become buyers. So that's sort of the challenge number one, or the problem number one that comes with it. The second one is just your customer pool is so much smaller if you're only concentrating on the people that are in the market today.
mm.
Everyone needs to buy a mattress at some point in time. We all sleep, hopefully 8 hours a night. But how many people are actively in the market right now this week buying a mattress? And so again, it's important to establish yourself before people enter that sort of final buying cycle.
Right. So kind of that long-term brand building component, right?
Yeah, and I'm not to say it's not important to pull that lever of, hey, we have to make sure we know our marketing is effective. We have to get some sales. That's
Yeah.
that's I think that's an important part of it. But to be the only part, that's the biggest challenge I've kind of seen over the last years is we didn't always used to have some clients that were always just focused on the sales this weekend. They would go, hey, let's have that split approach, and those are the most effective campaigns that I've ever worked on, is the ones that have that split approach.
Mm. Well, how do you balance that approach? How do you balance this long-term kind of brand building component with, like, let's say, a short-term sales push?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just easy if you look at your percentages. If you're 95% are always pushing this weekend, this weekend, this weekend, I
Yeah.
think that you take a step back and go, okay, hey, if I shave off 25% of that budget and focus on the bigger brand, first of all, is there going to be a benefit? And we can go through some of the. I believe there's a huge benefit to doing that.
Mm.
But yeah, I think just looking at your budget and looking at what your messaging is, if you're always focused on this weekend, this weekend, this weekend, you're probably on that treadmill.
Totally. Yeah. Um, I guess there's this concept that, you've talked about before called the mind self concept.
Yeah, the mind shelf.
Mind shelf,
Yeah,
sorry.
so it's yeah, the mind shelf. It's something I've sort of, well, I don't want to say built my career on, but the idea of it was I found very sort of easy to grasp. It's called a bunch of different things, top of mind
Mm,
awareness and different things like that. But the mind shelf is just, imagine you have thousands of little shelves in your brain, and there's one shelf for every single category. So there's, whether you know it or not, there's a mind shelf for plumbing, there's a mind shelf for windshield repair, there's a mind
mm,
shelf for fast food restaurants, and the list goes on and on and on to every product and category that is out there. And every buying decision, whether it's big or small, accesses the mind shelf first. And studies have also shown that our brains are only capable of having three of these brands in on our mind shelf at any given time. And you might be able to have access to more, but we only have three that are readily available. And so, for example, if let's say, seeing the mind shelf in use, let's say you're driving down Stony Trail, and all of a sudden a big massive rock flies out, smokes your windshield, and now you have this big spider on your windshield.
yeah.
I'm now, I was never in the market for windshield before. I might have never even had to access my windshield mind shelf before up until that moment. But now this is the life has turned me from a listener to a buyer.
Hmm.
And I go, okay, who do I know of? Who am I going to reach out to first? And if you don't have anybody on that list, that's when you'll enter the bottom of the buying funnel for everybody. Um, or if you do have somebody on that list, you're probably going to start with them. And I know in that specific example, I have, there's Speedy and Cal Alta. I only actually probably have two that would stand out on the windshield mind shelf for myself.
Yeah.
But I would, instead of Googling windshield repair, I would probably Google one or both of those companies to get their, either go to their website and enter their sales funnel, or at the very, or give them a phone call and get a quote. And so owning the mind shelf is almost like the SEO for the brain.
Hmm.
And you can play out that scenario for every single category. And that could be even as simple as, hey, where do you want to go for lunch when we're working downtown? And I guarantee you, it's easy to list off the first three.
Yeah.
It's more difficult to go deeper than that. And so you'll find once you understand or sort of know the concept of the mind shelf, you access that a lot more frequently than you think in life. And it's amazing how difficult it is to go away from those three that are in the category. And I guess, yeah, the last important part of from a marketing perspective is, owning the mind shelf is of your potential customers it can prevent them from entering the sales cycle from your competitors.
Mm.
And that's why it is such an absolute valuable piece of real estate in order to, build your marketing plan towards the goal of owning the mind shelf, because it's going to make your bottom of the funnel marketing that much more effective.
That's so interesting. Like even just the windshield example that you used, right? You kind of gave us like this is how you become problem aware type of thing,
Yeah.
which is
Oh,
funny.
totally.
And you already have a solution for it. You're already
Yeah.
solution aware before you even know you had a
Yeah.
problem.
Well, and there's like, it's funny. We work with a company, used to be called Doug Lacey's Basement Systems, and now Groundworks. But what they do is they do foundation repairs. Which, if you're talking about one of these, like that might be a once in a lifetime business where, the buying cycle is not weekly, daily. Like it's there's a chance that you will only use this company once in your lifetime. Yeah, they've seen enough awareness to go, hey, we want them when people have this problem, they're
Yeah.
only going to think of us, and
Yeah.
they know we're going to be the solution. So they're not even going to bother reaching out to everybody else, because they know who we are, they know why we're trusted, they know we're going to do the job right. And so I guarantee you they're circumventing that buying cycle just through proactive advertising.
Right. Well, what if I'm like, let's say, what if I'm a smaller brand? How can I start building that, like my own like category within that mind shelf, would you say?
Yeah, well, I think, and here's where, my bias towards audio
Yeah.
is going to come out. I think, well, first part is, I guess the first step is creative is absolutely critical. At the minimum, you need to be consistent and repetitive. And so our brains remember things through repetition. And if you want to increase your chances of owning the mind shelf for your category, tie your message to a musical signature.
Mm.
And I can give you a couple examples of how powerful that can be.
Yeah.
The first one is, through the alphabet. When I say what letter comes behind N, what do you say? And I guarantee you,
Oh,
but
but I
and
was
most,
singing the song. I was singing
yeah,
the
I was
song
going to
in my
say, I
head.
guarantee most people, and maybe I don't think I'm unique in this. We'll probably go A B C D E F G H I J,
Yeah.
and maybe I should have picked a more difficult letter than O or than N.
Yeah.
But
Please
yeah,
don't.
that melody's tied in. That the melody for the alphabet, it's tied into Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I don't know if you do that, but
Oh,
that's the
yeah,
actual
yeah.
song, the melody it's sung to. But if you look at it from a marketing point of view, it really highlights how important melody is to learning and memory, because it's if you think now, if I were to say to you, hey, memorize 26 letters in a row, it would be impossible. You're probably never going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yet, because it's tied to a melody, almost every person can do this by the time they're 4 years old. And so that's where you're talking about memory, and it's so important to own the mind shelf. Well, we need to do what leads our memories to or our brains to memorizing things. And just another quick note too is when I say sleep country Canada,
Yeah.
you you
Why
probably
buy a
know exactly
mattress
where
anywhere else? Yeah.
yeah. How would you finish that sentence? The
Yeah.
fact that the majority of people know the sales slogan to a mattress company, it absolutely highlights how critical audio and music is to memory. And again,
Yeah.
that's not radio specific, although my history is radio. It's from the psychology of memorizing. And if we can establish that being on the memory and on the mind shelf is important, then we need to use every tool that we have in our toolkit in order to increase our chances that your brand, even if you are a smaller business, it's not that expensive. Just like it's I view it as importance of establishing a logo. Like if you find importance to establish a logo for your business, I think having a musical signature
Mm.
is just as critical. And then once you go from there, then you can start doing things like digital audio if you want as a starting point, which is majority of businesses you can focus just on an FSA when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And that can be very cost effective even to a single person business. Or again, you can expand that across to national TV campaigns that still use that media that audio signature and the musical signature
Hmm.
in them. So
Yeah, it's interesting. Netflix, you turn on Netflix, you know
yeah,
what you're gonna hear. Your PlayStation, you get that PlayStation sound. Even like
yeah,
I grew up in Calgary, and like there's a song for I don't even know what the dealership was called, but Cars
Yeah.
Cost Less than Wetaskiwin.
Oh,
I remember the song, and if
yeah.
I were to drive to like Red Deer, Edmonton, or whatever, I'm always looking for Wetaskiwin because of that
Yeah.
song. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
really
and
cool.
yeah, I mean, the list goes on and on. Like from a marketing point of view, it's always amazing. I always push every client that we have because I believe so strongly in that our brains are tied to audio and music and
Hmm.
melody. Um, I always push that it's absolutely critical to have something. It could be as
Yeah,
simple as the McDonald's ba da ba ba ba. They don't
yeah,
have, because when I say jingles, a lot of people kind of roll their eyes because they're thinking
yeah,
1950s jingles,
yeah,
but in reality, it's tying it to melody. That's the core of it. And the moment you can do that, you can do it in a very classy, 2025 way. It doesn't have to be like a 1960s jingle.
yeah. Take your
Um,
Alka-Seltzer and you feel better fast, type of thing.
yeah, but again, we could go on for hours listing all the brands that have effectively held the mining shelf for decades. Even though
Very true.
I can't remember the last time I've heard some of those ads. Cars cost less than with Tasquid is a great example. That was probably 30 years ago the last time they ran it,
Yeah.
and we remember that, right? So,
Totally. Mark finally decided to show up.
oh
We're just discussing the role of creating the role of creative in building Mindshelf. Sorry. Um, one question around that, and this probably you probably have a great answer for this, Brad, because you're more around that media planning type of thing. So, what's the role of media planning in building that mind shelf?
yeah, well, I think the starting point always needs to be what is your brand. I think that it's a critical mistake if we start going into where the brand is going to be played before we establish what the brand is. And I think if you use that as a starting point to say, okay, what makes our business unique, better, different, that needs to be a starting point. Whatever medium you decide to and platform you decide to use, because if you haven't properly done that, I think just at a very minimum your plan is not going to be as efficient as it could be. But once you've established that what your brand is, then you can start building your media plan out from there. And yeah, again, going back to how our brains remember things, audio is such an important element. And
Yeah.
I'm not just again talking about radio, but incorporating melody into digital audio, radio, streaming, TV, socials, all of that stuff. That should be that can be an absolute cornerstone of what you do with your media planning. And like I said, it should be considered just as important as your logo. Yeah, once you've created that messaging, the next step to owning the mind shelf is utilizing mediums that allow you to drive repetition through frequency. It's unlikely that somebody's going to remember your brand after hearing it one time. It's very unlikely. So you need to go, okay, how are we going to be able to have that frequency that builds us a base? And it's often I give the analogy of a train moving forward. It takes a lot of energy to get that train up to speed. If you were to stop advertising and let that slow down, well, now it's going to slow down. You're going to have to spend that much more
Mm.
energy to get it back up to speed, as opposed to if you get it up to speed, the amount of energy it takes to keep that train moving at that top speed becomes less and less and less. And so that's why repetition through frequency is so important. Is you want to build that base and get that train moving, because then if you want to do some of the bottom of the funnel marketing, well, now you can just increase what the speed of the train is instead of getting it from start to 100 miles per hour again.
Right. Yeah, and the train analogy, like once you get to that bottom of the funnel, people are waiting at your at the station for you at that point, right?
Yeah.
So the quicker you can get the train there, the
Well,
quicker you
and,
can get
and
them
yeah,
on.
if you're only concentrating on bottom of the funnel, you're expending a lot more energy to
Yeah.
to get them up to speed about why they should pick you, why you're probably not the cheapest, why you're better than the cut rate competitor that always charges half of what you do. It's you have to spend a lot of money and effort to get up there, as opposed to what I would propose is having that where you establish that base so they know that you're different. And then when they're reaching out, when they are in the bottom of the funnel, if you can, there's a chance you can circumvent the funnel altogether and have them reach out directly to you. Even if you can't, their expectations aren't going to be that you're the cheapest. They're going to go, hey, they're a little bit more, but I know these guys are going to do it right because I know who they are. I
Yeah.
have that relationship with them already. They've established that. And that's why that's why it's critical that when you're putting that, start with the brand, but then put a plan together that allows you to have that frequency to make sure you can maintain that the Mindshelf spot.
There's a frequency I want to talk about too, Brad, with like remember way back when you and I worked together, there's the Wizard of Ads
Frequency at
program,
three.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But more so, I don't think it's so much the frequency at three as it is frequency over time,
Yes.
right? Like not everybody's in market to buy today. And so the assumption of like being able
Yeah.
to catch everyone today who could potentially buy the product is impossible.
Yeah. No,
What I think
and
was the
it's
brilliance of that program was that it ran for you bought into a year. And
yeah.
so, you're going to reach way more people over a year because they're
Yeah.
not all buying today. So you don't guess when they're going to be buying.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, earlier I mentioned, the mattress is a great, company or industry to look at where every single person on the planet will be buying a mattress at some point in time in their life, whether it's, every, in the next week, if the next 10 years, 15 years, whatever it is, everybody on the planet will be in the market to purchase a mattress. Yet and so you have companies like the Sleep Country Canada's that go, we want to be out there. So the moment that we can't, it's tough, it's impossible to predict when that right time is going to be for somebody to buy that mattress this week that they're actively looking in the market. We'd rather own the mind shelf of them. So when life takes them from a listener to a buyer, that they think of us first. And that's why yeah, it's so important just to have that consistency and that frequency, because you're never going to be able to predict exactly everybody that's there. And even if you by some fluke you're able to predict that when the majority of people are entering the marketplace, you still haven't had a chance to establish yourself and justify why you're probably not the cheapest company out there, and why people should choose you as opposed to just purely looking at the transactional cost. Because if nobody's spoken to them and nobody's established the brand, people will always default to, well, what is it actually going to cost, and do I believe that they're going to get it done right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In terms of media buying and planning too, like as you were talking about the audio component of it, I mean, audio's it's funny, like it's not just about audio anymore. I mean, it used to be definitive channels, like out of home was meant a billboard, like a print, almost a print billboard. Print meant print. TV meant a TV show, and usually a 30-second spot. A radio spot meant you had an audio. But now all this kind of is blending together, and so it's like you have a TV screen that's really just a screen, and there's all kinds of different pipes that are driving into that. So, like when you're talking about planning media and thinking about the jingle as a component of that, would you suggest that people like think about the palette of assets? So you can't hear a logo on an audio like, and that's where the sonic jingle comes in. Like, so when you're thinking about building a better brand program and media planning, how much of the branding elements need to be considered when you're thinking about the media channels that you're going to use?
So I don't know. The way that I would answer that is I'm such a big believer in the power of audio itself. And again, that's not just the radio element of it. I wouldn't build. I would build both a logo and a musical signature. If I was starting a business from scratch today, I would build both of those out as I'm establishing myself. This is what it is, and then I'm going to decide the platforms that I need to use to best maximize where my brand is placed. Because you're right. Radio, for example, or just audio only. The downfall of that, there you can't see the logo, which can be a thing, and so but doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that the radio and audio can't be effective. It shouldn't be the only thing that you're doing. Absolutely not. You should go, okay, where can I get that mix where it's both of those assets that I'm utilizing, and also I've seen some people that have a musical signature but don't necessarily run it in a TV commercial or a video commercial, and I'm going, everything needs to be tied together. Like it should be like you should have both, and it should be, hey, here's our logo, here's our brand, here's the musical signature is part of that. And so it becomes a little bit more difficult, or not difficult, more difficult, but there's more choices out there, which I think can be really overwhelming to clients, where they go, okay, like it used to be easy. If I want to reach the at work audience, well, it's at the time late 96, now it started 95.9, was probably one of the only solutions to reach that 15, 20 years ago. Whereas now it's like, okay, that can be a base, but let's look at adding in streaming TV. Let's look at adding certain FSAs that are just around the target store. Like you can start layering on just the sort of the omni-channel approach.
Hmm.
But again, the core part of that needs to be, it needs to tie in with your brand. And
Yeah.
so you need to establish, again, logo, musical
Yeah.
signature, what your brand stands for. And then you can start looking at, okay, who are the core buyers? How am I going to most effectively reach them
Yeah.
through the content, and not just through the channel?
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
in a way, the richness of the media channels and choices, have to match the richness of your brand palette, because it's not just about a logo anymore, or
Yes.
just about, what I mean? Like there's so many things you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess the goal here is when you see a logo, you hear
The
the
jingle.
melody or whatever, the
Yeah.
jingle.
Yeah.
And when you hear the jingle, you just see the logo in your mind, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like
Or
McDonald's, yeah.
yeah, or one, and again, I know Sleep Country Canada did this so effectively that's why I use them as an example so frequently. But yeah, now it's when I just say the word Sleep Country Canada, yeah, people in their brains
Yeah.
say what the sales slogan is, and from a memory and a marketing point of view, that is such a powerful statement that there's I guarantee none of us woke up and said, hey, I really wanted what I need to learn today. I need to learn the sales slogan for a mattress company.
Yeah.
But because of frequency and because of the power of melody, that's and all they're trying to do is increase their chances of when somebody is ready to enter the market of buying a mattress, that they're probably the first or second place that they call, and all the other people. And I don't, off the top of my head, I have no idea how many mattress stores there are, but I would assume there's probably 15, 20 places that would sell mattresses, and I couldn't list you more than maybe one or two.
It's true.
And that's because they started with the approach of what their brand is, and then they just built that out through frequency and repetition.
I think the biggest takeaway here is that the Calgary Marketing Association needs to come up with a jingle so that we
Yeah.
can distinctively separate ourselves from the Canadian Marketing Association.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, as you can tell, I'm a huge believer of the power of melody.
Yeah.
It's funny. Another example I gave when I was already a believer in the musical signatures by this point in time, but I was watching a Rolling Stones concert where they were playing in Japan. This is years and years and years ago. They're playing in Japan, and they panned over the audience, and all of these people in Tokyo were singing along
Mm.
to these English songs. And there's a 0% chance everybody in that audience knew how to speak English. Yet they were able to. The power of the melody is they were able to speak another language, because that's just how they know. That's how our brains work. And so from a marketing point of view, it's silly not to tie into that. In my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
It's funny enough because I have been talking to Brad about a jingle for the CMA,
Oh.
Calgary
Oh.
Marketing Association. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been an ongoing conversation.
That's funny.
Yeah, the hard part for me is just trying to figure out what it's going to be, and that becomes, in some ways exciting, but also frustrating, and then just it's stupid. But we also never needed it before because we weren't going to be doing any kind of audio advertising in the past, and now we are, and so now it's become a thing.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I've also found like advertising is just blended in so much. Like and Mark, this. Like there used to be some clients who would go, I buy radio, that's what I buy. I buy
Yeah.
print, that's what I buy. And it didn't go like you were either maybe even as high as 70% of clients they were just one thing. They're like, hey, I'm a radio buyer, I'm a TV buyer, I'm a print buyer. Where now I don't think that plan can work anymore. Like I think like you're going to miss out on opportunities if you only have that omni-channel approach, or like that one
Single
channel
channel,
approach, single channel approach. Whereas if you say, hey, here's the core of it, here's what my brand is, here's the elements we can include. Now let's figure out the best way to reach the target audiences through the different content. So some of that
Yeah.
content might be streaming audio that's directed to just certain areas of the city, or it might be streaming TV shows that are only targeting Flames hockey because you really want to tie into that brand. Like there's so you can start building that brand out from there, but the core of it has to be what makes you different, unique, and better. And then what are the elements that are going to increase my chances of being memorable.
The other alternative for us is because we've never really thought about music, is now we're looking at, I'm going to go in actually tomorrow and record my voice for the audio. So in a way, it's a character, or I am a character in a way. I'm somewhat of a distinctive asset for the company that I'm representing. So at least it's something that's going to be a different, like the Geico Gecko as an example, or IKEA's Swedish guy
Yeah.
that, yeah,
Or locally tell them Lanny sent you for Eastside Dodge.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's been around for
Forever.
decades. And yeah, like I know, tell them Lanny sent you. You know, that's not a musical signature. That's just a brand that they built out that becomes, and it's still, it can be effective. It just becomes, it's a higher entry point to becoming effective. You need to run it for longer and have more frequency if you don't, if you're not going to sort of take the audio signature shortcut or musical signature shortcut.
Yeah. I'm totally picturing Mark being the new Pete the Plumber, to be honest.
Yeah.
Explosions and all.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
well, here's, it's funny, like you look at that brand, the superhero plumbing, you know, they have all their, you know, the superheroes on every, and it's ironic enough, I was involved with them actually going from Yellow Pages at the time to radio. This is Mark, it's probably 20 years ago now, but yeah, to go from essentially what was a pure bottom of the funnel play to, hey, I'd rather people call you directly than try and decide if they want to call you from looking in the Yellow Pages.
Yeah. Even, I mean, speaking of that too, I mean, thinking about, I don't know if you already covered this, but your direct traffic and organic traffic on your website is probably a better indicator than of the impact of this kind of stuff than like a click-through rate.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny. I'm gonna probably, I don't remember the specific stats of this because it was probably 15 years ago or 10 years ago that I looked this up. But I had written a blog about this whole theory of, you know, fast food restaurants. That's probably one of the most advertised industries in the world. You know, they spend a lot of money because the churn rate is, or not churn rate, but the repeat buying. You need to stay in front of them all the time. And I looked up Google AdWords, and the amount of people that looked up fast food or hamburger in the Vancouver area at the time was like, in a month, was like, you know, 100 people. And then, but compare that to the amount of people that Googled McDonald's in that same month, it was probably 10,000 people. And it's because people, they know what the brand is. It's an established brand. They own the Mindshelf. People don't need to be guided on what fast food options available. They need to be guided to, where's my closest McDonald's? That's where I want to go to eat. And so, you know, the same can be true for, you know, that's a pretty advertised industry. So it's pretty saturated. But you know, other industries, plumbing, you know, foundation repair, roofing, all these industries can benefit from this type of stuff. Whether, and it doesn't matter how short or how long your buying cycle is, because all that does is increase the value of a lifetime customer. If they're you know, buying, you know, once every 2 years, they're probably spending $25,000 and not spending 99 cents or $3 on a burger or whatever it is. So it's just the value of each new customer just goes up.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I really love this the idea of the mind shelf component. It's funny because before I knew I was going to be talking to you about this, I started to think about how things are just being like kind of basically locked into my mind, like I'm Neo or something from the Matrix in terms of advertising. So this is
it's funny too though, because nobody wants to think that advertising has had an impact on every single person I've ever talked to. Thinks that they're smarter and better than, no, I'm my own person. I decide my own things. That's what I do. And yeah, like once you are exposed to the concept of the mind shelf, I guarantee you'll start thinking about it more and more, where even as, you know, what are you going to get for dinner? Well, you're accessing your mind shelf for dinner. Okay, there's probably 3 options that lead the way every time you have that discussion.
Totally.
And it's just like literally every single thing that you do. Where are you going to go on vacation? Well, there's probably 3 places that are holding the mind shelf for your vacation. Like it's really a fascinating concept.
Totally. And honestly, what you've done is you've really ruined my day, Brad, because this is all I'm going to be thinking about now.
That's how I like starting Monday mornings, ruining people's days.
I'm just kidding. Really great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm interested to, you know, just go throughout my day and just, you know, hear certain distinctive elements or see certain distinctive elements and kind of like evaluate or kind of assess like, hey, what does that tie into? Because I feel like if you actually think about it, it's a lot. There's a lot that's absolutely there for sure.
Yeah, and then I think there's some, for anyone that's listening that's sort of unsure about where their marketing is at. I think there's a few big takeaways, because and some of them are, you know, don't get stuck in the bottom of the funnel trap. And like with the digital transformation, I see it more and more frequently. And I know it's easy to do because you can always adjust, or you can always justify your budget because there's always an instant gratification to it. But it's from a long term growth. It's a very tricky game and scary game to be going down. The other
Real
thing
quick
is
too, Brad, just to interrupt you for a second. There's a ton of evidence around that we've been sharing through the newsletters and everything.
okay.
So totally supported by all the things in science when you say that.
Yeah. I love to hear that because well, you know me, Mark, that I go from my own experiences and build out theories and just use those experiences. So I'm happy there's some
Just
science
full confirmation
to confirm all that. But yeah, and yeah, I guess the other part is if you start thinking about the mind shelf and just know that if you're able to own the mind shelf for your potential buyers, you can actually prevent them from going into your customer's buying cycle. And so then you can start going away from that bottom of the funnel trap, which it's important. You can still do it, but you don't have to. You can get away from that and sort of circumvent their buying cycle. And yeah, audio is one of the most effective tools for memory. And then yes, start with your messaging first and your brand first, and then build up the mediums from there. They'll come to light when you have to start with the brand and what your message is going to be, and then you can start layering on the different platforms.
Yeah, great takeaways for sure. Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
thanks so much, Brad. This is awesome, and yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more about it all
Yeah,
moving forward
and
here.
if
So
I can just do a last plug for Rogers Sports and Media,
Yeah.
we are one of the we're a local team, and I live in Calgary. I've was raised in Alberta, and to be part of a company that has not only the traditional platforms like the radio stations and the TV stations, and we have 4 local radio stations: Star 95.9, Jack 96.9, Sportsnet 960, and 660 News Radio. And that's just on the radio side. We have Sportsnet West, we have Omni on the TV side.
yeah,
We have specialty channels, but we also have the digital plays. And the fact that our company has been so progressive when it comes to digital content and exclusive digital content, things like Sportsnet Plus and our specialty channels and things like that, and even out of home, we have tabletoppers and stuff like that. So we
yeah.
really do have solutions for any size of business. And our whole goal is to be able to guide people and ultimately help them accomplish their marketing goals and their advertising goals, whether it is just bottom of the funnel or if it's sort of the overall marketing plan. We can absolutely help. So that's sort of my little plug on Rogers Sports and Media.
I love it. Yeah,
It's
thanks.
changed so much too since we worked together. It's awesome to see that evolution.
Well, yeah, it used to be you sold just one radio station. Like Marky, when you and I sold, I think I was AMs and you were FMs, and it was so now it's truly like our Calgary team sells to Calgary businesses, and that can be. We have some businesses that don't. Their goal is not to market in Calgary. Their goal is to market in Eastern Canada. Well, our local reps are able to put those plans together for them for Eastern Canada. So they're going to have a face that they can, and somebody local that they can deal with and have meetings with and talk about results and talk about what their goals are, as opposed to having to do stuff over the phone with somebody in Eastern Canada to put a marketing plan together. So it really is. I'm quite proud of the company I work for, and I think if you are looking, if anyone that's listening to this is looking for a business partner, we'd love to have that opportunity to help your business grow.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm going to give you guys all the credit for how well the Toronto Blue Jays are doing right now, too.
Oh.
So thanks for that as well.
Did you watch last night's game? It's probably not.
I haven't watched any of the games since the Dodgers absolutely annihilated them this past week. But
it's fun. It's fun having a summer sport when hockey's not played. So
exactly. Yeah, I have high hopes for them during the pennant. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Brad.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great